All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Courtney Savi-Lawrence, and I'm with a lot of our volunteers from the Circular Design Lab. Today, we have a 1-hour meet and greets, and we're really excited to share a little bit about what we do. We know some of you already, and we're excited to also meet some of the new faces. So this is, as mentioned, one of the first of 7 events for the Bangkok Design Week, which is now pivoted and completely online due to COVID, of course. But what we're going to do is strive to actually create this to be really interactive. But before we move into that space, just wanted to double check that every stuff you can find in the chat box a way to say hello. Maybe you can do a quick intro as well, just your name and what city you're in. Perhaps it's not Bangkok, for example. And then we'll get started with a little bit of the story and moving forward too in ways that possibly you would like to get involved. We would love to see your faces too. We know it's Zoom fatigue all the time, but if you are open to putting your camera on, if your bandwidth allows for that, that would be really great. So feel free to put your camera on and possibly stay on mute for the moment anyway. And let us know where in the world you are dialing in from in the chat box. And then make sure that you can also see us and hear us just fine. So we have Soma dialing in from Khao. Great. Paulina, Chris in Bangkok. Wonderful.
Yeah, I'm joining.
Fantastic. So we're going to kick off. If you just joined the room, please do put yourself on mute for the moment. Camera on if possible. And we would love for you to let us know where in the world you're dialing in from and your name.
Oh shit, camera on wah.
Okay. Okay, welcome to the first kickoff, as mentioned. We're going to share a little bit of the story behind Circular Design Lab. We know some of you already, and perhaps for some of you, it's our first time to interact together. But just to be clear, we are a 100% volunteer-driven endeavor, and we are going to share a little bit about how we came together to really start tackling some of these large-scale challenges, environmental issues, social justice issues, in our own backyard, and think about what does that look like to do so with people from our own community. Now, the next slide here, this image is not meant for you to completely understand it, but the point we want to make here is that we started in the very beginning of 2019 with one question, which was simply around who else in the community is interested in the same type of issues that we are, and how might we be able to use a design process, an innovation process, to get to some of the possible solutions to move the system. So we're working on system scale challenges, but to be very specific, our very first one was actually focused on Bangkok's waste management issue. If you've been living in Bangkok for a long time, then you would know just through observation and the experience here that there are different ways in which the government or community citizens, for example, are trying to contribute to making it better. But in many ways, it's quite disparate. There's a lot of fragmentation and a lot of different efforts. So we wanted to bring it together and better understand how could we solidify elements of that. So at the very top left of the screen here, you will see we just put together a series of workshops, systemic design workshops, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And ever since, we've been learning along the way, expanding the scope, focusing on different topics, ranging from air pollution to plastics, and actually moving towards other things such as food systems. This is demand driven, meaning if somebody in the community wants to work on something, for example, unsustainable fast fashion, then you can come and say, hey, this is something I think is a challenge we want to tackle. And then how do we get plugged in? So just to say, there isn't one small group of people only deciding, it's a collective. And we do focus not only on workshops, but a few other things that we'll talk about in just a moment to share. So this collaboration story, this volunteer effort really starts with a common goal. And I'm going to pass it to one of the other co-founders, Ajahn Prewa, to share a little bit more.
Thank you, Courtney. So at the very beginning, four of us, the co-founders, started to discuss about what are we trying to achieve together, what are our common goals, and in doing so, we asked the guiding questions. For example, how could we foster this sort of impact? We're seeking that at a much larger scale than we were. And how might we leverage the skills within our group to make that happen? How could we marry design principles with systems thinking in a way that is accessible for a broader audiences? So therefore, systems design. How could we instill the confidence in authors to test possibilities? And how could we design a program that was intentionally inclusive and open so everyone could join? That's it.
Thanks.
And so I'll take it from here for a minute. So from that beginning where we were trying to figure out what we could do together, we put together our first program, put the word out to invite people and see if people wanted to take part in this and if it was interesting and if it would be useful. And from that time, we've had a lot of fun. We've learned an awful lot and started to build a nice community. Next slide, Courtney. And so over time, we've kind of evolved three things, three goals. The first one was build community. The second one was build capacity for future possibilities. And the third one is to use systemic design to drive beneficial change. So hopefully, if you guys find this interesting, hopefully you'll become part of this community with us and start to learn. And then all of us together can hopefully begin to make more and more positive change together.
So this slide here, you'll see lots of different images, and I'm just going to take a moment to walk you through some of what you're seeing. Because to the point that Chris and Prewa were just making, this is really about community, which is a word that we hear all the time, but what does it really mean? And for us, it's a variety of things, but the top left image here is the very first set of workshops. When I mentioned we worked on waste management, we ended with a panel as well as an opportunity for all of the different teams that were a part of the workshops to share their ideas of what kind of possible solutions. And we're using the word prototypes. So if you're familiar with the design process, you'll hear prototyping all the time. However, maybe it's your first time to hear this word, but ultimately it's a test. It's a test to experiment and see and learn about ways in which we're dividing or building solutions and what can we do, what works, what fails, how might this connect to something that someone else is doing elsewhere. And ultimately, the process is to learn and try to create more efficacy and resonance. But at the same time, what we also learned is not everybody has evening and weekends free to go to lots of workshops, but they are interested in connecting with other like-minded people. So we started doing zero waste cocktail nights, other types of R&D labs, ecosystem events. At the bottom left here in this image that you see, we had also a panel of unusual suspects. So we also very curious to hear from those on the ground, not necessarily those that are always speaking at every online conference, for example. And so one of the students from Thammasat University, who's part of our lab, she's translating here for one of the informal trash collectors, who's the founder of the Zero Bot Shop. So a very interesting model from the ground up in which how local citizens are managing their own waste. So on the right-hand side too, you can see other images of just some of the evenings where we have food together, our workshops together as well. But where does this framework come from? Where do we use the process and tools? Chris is going to share a little bit about what that looks like too.
Sure. Just really quickly, we didn't start from scratch when we started doing these things. We went out and found a lot of interesting resources. You know, we borrowed and stole ideas, and we always give credit, but we use a lot of different stuff from a lot of different groups. There's loads of interesting things out there. So if anyone's ever interested in digging in on some of that stuff, these are three of the ones that we've used a lot, and there are plenty of others. Please feel welcome to reach out to us if you'd like to learn about some of those. We want to thank the Incubation Network. They're giving us some support for this summer series and some of the other things that we're working on right now, so we appreciate that. And then just want to put the word out there that we're working on a guidebook. Just getting started right now. Hopefully this fall we'll have a draft, and we would love to share it with the community and get feedback. The idea is to be able to have it be an open source manual for people all over the world to pick up and run with and hopefully do useful things. Oh, and one other thing, we're working on plans for a plastic waste pre-incubator. Hopefully it will be this fall. We're going to wait until probably we can do something in person for this. But the idea is to get individuals and groups to come in and develop an idea based on the plastic waste problem that could then move on towards becoming prototyping and testing and that sort of stuff.
And so what we want to just kind of emphasize is, again, if you're on the call and you're really curious about some of the different issues that matter to you in your own backyard, or perhaps you're not necessarily in Bangkok, but in a different part of Thailand or a different part of the region, and you would like to try to use some of the CDL process, please reach out to us, because we're not only a copy paste type of process. But that being said, we're going to share a little bit around a case study. So as I mentioned in the beginning, what starts from a series of workshops, sometimes you can't imagine the scale or the long range depth in which it can become something. But so I'm going to pass it over to Laura and Soma, who have been working on one of the issues that we focused on in our 2.0 lab. So we've done our 1.0 on waste management. Then we expanded to a 2.0 lab in the fall of 2019. And we still worked on waste management, but we also included air pollution and unsustainable fast fashion. And the reason for those additional themes is simply, like I mentioned before, people came and said, this matters to me. It's a problem here. Let's do something about it. And so over to you, Laura, to share a little bit around this issue that we've been tackling.
Thanks, Courtney. So this is just a bit about our process and how we go from idea and recognizing a challenge to breaking that apart, and then I'll pass it up to some others who are taking it forward even today in interesting ways. So there were a few of us in one of the workshop series that really were stuck on this issue of air pollution. And I know it not only affects the daily life here in Bangkok where I sit, but also around the country and the region, and really touching every part of our lives. So it's this massive challenge, and really challenging to think about where exactly we can, as a small group of concerned citizens, engage and make a difference. So we started out on the next slide. We started out trying to map the problem and say, okay, what is actually going on? What do we know? And what do we maybe need to research some more and figure out a little bit and talk to some experts? And this was our very first rich picture, where we, got out the markers and all sat around for a couple of hours and put it all out there. And you can see just how interconnected this issue is with all the different push-pull factors going on. And then on the next slide, we organized our thoughts a little bit and really got into those arrows, those influence pathways, what are the drivers behind this challenge? And so around the edge and in the center, you can see those drivers that had emerged from that rich picture. They might be financial or economic, or related to education or access to information and quality of information, or even cultural or political. And finally, we thought, okay, well, where can we, as this small group of folks from across different disciplines, where can we actually shift some of those levers and drive and make a difference in changing this trend of accelerating air pollution? And you can see the red dots there really represented where we thought we could, there were good entry points for us to get involved. And it's really centered around this lack of awareness and engagement, and also active engagement in the political process and regulatory process around air pollution. So we actually had the good fortune to connect with some real experts in this area. And I believe, Courtney, that I'm passing it off to Weena next.
Well, actually, just to give it a little bit of a shout out.
Yeah.
So just to share, what you see here is a digitization of the map. And we want to say big thanks to Sev, who's on the call. She took what we did in person and put it on the slides for us here. And the red dots representing where we voted for leverage points. So we're looking in the system towards the most strategic entry point for us to make a difference, knowing whatever resources and design constraints we have at our hands. But I do want to pass it over quickly before we move to Weena, who's the co-founder of the Clean Air Network, who joined the workshops and helped us spur a whole new trajectory of the work that we were doing. But I want to share and see if our co-lead of the air pollution work, Soma, if you had anything else you wanted to share about the experience And one of the reasons why we chose air pollution is because Kun Soma cared so much. So maybe Soma, you could share just a few
For sure.
points or thoughts.
So much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we never thought that the PM 2.5 would be a problem for us, and it seems to be so far away. Actually, I had plans to move to Chiang Mai to live, and then actually PM 2.5 is one of the biggest issue right now. When they started burning season, people cannot even breathe. So I was like, if we cannot even breathe, like, what are we supposed to do? So I was very interested in how we can contribute to finding solutions or ways to make things better for our air quality, because it affects all of us. And that's when I, came to be part of this group. And so thank you so much for having me. Super excited to see what's ahead as well. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Soma. So we're going to hear a little bit around, like I mentioned, what came from our workshops. So we moved from workshops to then longer term strategic work. So Weena, over to you to share a little bit around literally Thailand Can and how the Circular Design Lab has been collaborating with you.
Right. Thanks so much, Courtney. So I actually wear two hats. So I'm the co-founder of the Thailand Clean Air Network. I'm also a co-lead for the air pollution channel here with Circular Design Lab as well. As you can see before, a lot of the issues is particularly with everything, but with air pollution specifically, the issues are very intertwined, and it's not something that we as a small volunteer group of people can really do much about on our own. So this is a logo of all the various partners that we have partnered with, formally and informally as well. Circular Design Lab being one of our strategic partners. We've also gotten help from PwC, the World Resources Institute, Stockholm Environmental Institute, a whole host of different entities. Even artists have come to help us and donated their time to a number of our workshops. So could we go back to the two slides before that, Courtney? Just two before this one? Yeah. So just really quickly, I want to introduce to you who the Thailand Clean Air Network is. We, similar to the Circular Design Lab, we are also a small active group of citizens working primarily on a voluntary basis, pretty much, to work together to try and find sustainable solutions to the air pollution problem. It's such a complex problem that it needs the expertise of everyone from across different fields. So our focus is to try and find solution that is long-term in terms of focus, but also one that is holistic in terms of encompassing all the various disciplinary solutions out there. And another core tenet of what we're trying to do is we truly believe that it's extremely important that whatever solution needs to be something that comes from the bottom up. And that's the part that's been missing. And therefore, the education portion that Courtney's been talking about and Laura has talked about too is a very, very important part of it. And having stakeholder buy-in and stakeholder inputs into the solution. Could we flip two slides across? Courtney, thank you. And so the approach that the Thailand Clean Air Network is doing in conjunction with Circular Design Lab is we've actually developed 3 different paper. We have completed the Clean Air White Paper, which really talks about the problems of air pollution at a holistic level. That was completed towards the end of 2019. And then in 2020, we pretty much devoted the entire year developing the Clean Air Blue Paper, which talks into and touches upon all the impacts of air pollution. It's a 217-page document. And right now we're in the cusp of developing the final paper, which is the green paper. This is a solutions-based paper. This entire process I'm talking to you about is pretty much us following the steps of what the EU uses in terms of bringing people across onto the same table to discuss all the issues and push for legislative process. And this is the same step we're using because the Thailand Clean Air Network has in fact submitted the first citizen-driven draft Clean Air Act to Parliament. We've gotten approval in August, and we're now in the process of soliciting the required 10,000 signatures to push this to become law in Thailand. So this is where we're at currently. And right now we have solicited about, we are targeting a touch higher than 10,000. We're aiming for about 11,000 signatories. And we've now got about 3,000-ish. Having COVID come in as obviously has been a bit of a challenge for us. But we're soldiering on because, as Laura has mentioned, everybody has mentioned, there is no alternative to breathing air because the right to breathe clean air is inherently the right to life for all of us.
That's
And
right.
I'll push.
Yeah, I think what I'd like to do, just to make sure for the interest of time, maybe we can segue into the campaign that we did. Is that okay, Weena?
Perfect. Go ahead, Courtney.
Great,
Thank you.
thanks. So we wanted to bring it back to the way in which this amazing effort that the Thailand Clean Air Network has already been championing, which is a legislative process, a policy process. And they've been working on this, but the whole point in that first initial piece here is the power of partnerships. And so what we realized by just simply coming together is that the policy work that they're doing really needs even more education and awareness. And so what came from that collaboration, and because we identified those leverage points already through the workshop, so in a way that was our process for filtering, was to develop a Right to Clean Air Roadshow, which is a collaboration between Circular Design Lab and the Thailand Clean Air Network. This was something they had intended to do, and we had extra, let's say, hands on deck to help support. So this was a campaign. I think we can put the link to it if you're interested in the chat box as well. But it was something in which we created the roadshow for a series of August through last December, several different events, both online and offline. And I'm going to pass it over to Kun Kin, who is one of our heavy lifters of the effort. So Kin, if you don't mind, we have just a few stories to tell through these pictures, and then we're going to go into the meet and greet part of the hour. But over to you, Kin, to share a little bit of what was going on here. As you can see, lots of images and involvement.
Yeah, it is. So maybe actually, if you go back one slide quickly, please, Courtney. I think that might be. Let me see if. Yeah. So this website here, which somebody will, or unless somebody is not, and then I'll give you guys the link on the chat box. Is a web page that hosts essentially our what we call the From 2.5 to 0 Right to Clean Air campaign. One of the core ideas behind the consultative process that Thailand Clean Air Network came up with, rather than just going door to door and trying to just ask if you can, do you like me enough to sign a petition to support the Clean Air Act for me? We don't want to do that. The Clean Air Network didn't want to do that because the important piece of doing this public process is so that we can raise awareness about the issue. So it's not just about the act. It's not just about the legislation, but it's about making sure that people understand the issues behind the air pollution, right? They understand the various different sources, the complexities of the issues. Is not just falling into the traps of saying, oh, it's all about biomass burning, or it's all about vehicle, or it's all about factories. In fact, it's a lot of various different aspects. So knowing that we want to make sure the awareness is there, Thailand Clean Air Network and CDL, we came up together with this 2.5 to 0 campaign, which is essentially a series of webinars online that we hosted, featuring experts from Thailand, from the Clean Air Network, from CDL, and also from our partner organizations, talking about the legislation approach, but also from the various other creative approaches to solving air pollution problem. So things like the economics look at air pollution impacts, things like how do we capture, there's actually one of our speakers, working with or co-founded a company that literally captures air pollution from the air and turn it into ink for printing ink, right? That was something totally different, right? So we had a series of that webinars, which is hosted on our website, and it's on righttocleanair.com. So you guys can go and check it out. There's a lot of recordings in there, both in Thai and in English, and really highly recommend that. We also did not just online event, but when the opportunity permitted, barring COVID, of course, when we were able to do in-person event, we also did. And this is an example. I think this was in September, or I forget the month, sometime last year. We were part of an event at the Bangkok Arts and Culture Center, the BACC, where we featured various different sustainability themed kind of initiatives, right? And so Clean Air, Right to Clean Air is one of them. And as you can see, we did everything ranging from an arts competition where children get to come and talk about, well, what is their visions of clean air in the future. We put together a massive, what you see on the bottom left and kind of on the right side in the middle there, a massive piece of paper that talks about what is your vision for clean air future. And that was actually really cool because we saw a lot of people coming and putting down the ideas. Our partner artist that have been working with us, he put together a live art installation or live art show under the theme of breathe, breath, breathing, breathe. I think that's the name of it. Or, you know, you can do a combinatorics on the order of the words there, which was a powerful demonstration or a powerful art installation, live art piece on what it means to be breathing, to breathe clean air, and what are we paying when we don't get it, right? When we don't get the clean air. And of course, part of that whole thing was a clean air station, in which we set up a station where people who want to support the Clean Air Act can actually sign put their ID card down, sign a petition over there. And I processed, I don't know, I think about 120 signatures on that day or something like that, right? So that was a pretty good day. Next slide, please, Courtney.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ken. And I think Laura is going to share a little bit around one of the other interventions that we were experimenting with. So maybe over to Laura as well.
Yeah, thanks. So we teamed up also with not only those who are working on the cause of the air pollution, but also how can we protect ourselves and be safe about going about daily life in this environment until there are these legislative perhaps and system changes in place. And we worked with an organization called Smart Air, and they do a lot of advocacy and engagement around air purification, but they also helped us understand how easy it is to actually make your own air purifier, and that some of the technology that's in these really expensive, fancy brands is actually just boils down to a fan and a HEPA filter. And if you have both of those, you can, within an enclosed space, you can actually have a really good effect from making one yourself for a really low cost. So we worked with them and ran some workshops, and we were hoping to do this in person as part of Design Week, but I think we're gonna have to pivot a bit. Stay tuned. And then also, but when we were thinking about it, the filters that we need and the masks that we wear for COVID or for air pollution, whatever it might be, they're all creating more waste and adding, this Band-Aid onto our collective challenge of air pollution. But not really, they're just causing another problem in terms of filling up the landfill. So I know Ajahn Irk, I think you're here on this call, but we worked with the Scrap Lab at Kasetsart University back in December and ran some ideation sessions on how we can take these filters that may be at the end of their use for filtering out polluted air and bring them into another kind of supply chain, and how can they have a new life that's reimagined for use instead of going into the landfill. But this is something that we hope to continue, and it's really ongoing work that we'd love to hear your ideas as well. Over to you, Courtney.
Great. Thanks so much, Laura. Really, really wonderful. So just to kind of bring it all full circle, we're looking at how do we impact things such as national policy at that scale to then already working downstream, right? And thinking about those that need support and care. And then also how does that impact with possible unintended consequences? So to the point of how do we get the university students involved too? So one thing to mention, which maybe was slightly past because we're moving quite quickly, is that thanks to Thailand's citizen-driven legislation, we're on this campaign with Thailand Clean Air Network to get 10,000 or 11,000 signatures. So all that to say, we did have the road show, which was August through December last year, and continually there's groups meeting, and it's expanding and ebbing and flowing. New companies have actually stepped up and offered pro bono support for different ways that they want to contribute and need contribution to get these signatures. And it's not as simple as just filling out like a Greenpeace or change.org online petition. It's a very kind of labor intensive process. It's manual. People need to Xerox their national IDs and so on. So just to say, the volunteer effort continues. It's quite large. It's very collaborative. If you are keen to support in any kind of way in that matter, please do reach out and we'll get you plugged in specifically with that effort. But we are here and we have half of our opportunity in this hour together to really tap your talent, your ideas, your wisdom, your expertise. But before we do that, we would love for you to join us in what we're calling a virtual field trip. So in the chat box, I'm just going to ask, is anyone, has anyone already used Miro before? So Miro is like an online whiteboard. And if you've used Miro before, maybe you can just simply say yes. If not, if this is your first time, you can say first time. And this will be a cool opportunity for you to learn a little bit about this digital collaboration tool. So first time for anyone? Okay, a few first times. So what I'm gonna do is share with you a link in the chat box. If you're on your laptop, it should be pretty easy. If you're on your phone, it's still gonna be possible, maybe not quite as easy to use. But what we wanna do, and just take 5 minutes for this, is to have you think about one interesting community, business, or project that is doing something different, sustainable. Maybe it's an inspiration for you. And then put on one of the Post-it notes. So the link will take you directly to our Miro board here. And if you could write your name, you can even add your LinkedIn or your Facebook profile. This is a little bit of that. If we were together in one room together, this is the kind of information we would exchange. But if you could put your Post-it of where in the world it is on the map, and that a cool example that comes to mind for you, or maybe it's something you're already working on. That's what we love to do. So we're going to have this link in the chat box. Now, if you can't access Miro, you can just let us know in our chat box right here, and we'll copy and paste it over for you. But specifically, this is the opportunity for us to learn from each other. And so I'm gonna just give us maybe 5 minutes, and I'm gonna share my screen with specifically this, this Miro board. And then you can see all of the different people working at the different times, which is quite cool. So everything is right here for you. And again, if you're not able to access it, just let us know. We're happy to help do that for you. So I'm going to set the timer just for, let's say, 3 more minutes. Play some music. Maybe some Sunshine Jam. Let's see how that goes. All right, welcome back everybody. I see so much cool stuff happening. Literally, it's amazing when we tap everybody's collective ideas. Now, we're gonna actually have a better opportunity to really meet people and do introductions properly in this very next section. And so what I'd like to do is just walk you through how the rest of today will go. And what I'm gonna do is share my screen one more time, so that you can see what we're doing and how we're doing it. And we'll share, you have this access to this link forever and ever. Okay, so just to contextualize a little bit of our approach and where we're going with this next, let's say, activity, we're actually gonna be in smaller groups. And don't worry, it won't be so long because we do have to wrap up in 20 minutes or so. But the Circular Design Lab is very focused on changing systems, but how do we get there? And this visual from Nesta, an innovation foundation in the UK, does great justice to letting kind of communicate where we play. Our sandbox is really in this 1 through 4 area. We're trying to use our workshops, our pre-incubation process, our design process, our systemic design curriculum to help us move into a space in which we could possibly change systems like the one just described with the air pollution effort. Now, we also, you may have seen this before, but the 2 loops model by Burkana, we're also very much, our sandbox includes this transition space, this experimental space. So we're very interested in experimenting on the things that will allow the emergent system to take stronger shape going forward and challenge the status quo. And so we're going to ask you, where in the system are you working with intention to affect change? And maybe you're just still thinking about it. Maybe it's just shifting your mindset from thinking how might, for example, I lead more of a light footprint, a zero waste lifestyle, for example, to possibly leading something at your company, the school where you might be working or teaching, or you have children, all the way up to industry orientation. So what we're going to do is have us go into smaller groups and just try to get your ideas around maybe new ideas of things that you've been chewing on. Maybe it's food, maybe it's plastics, or maybe interesting existing examples. And the way in which that will look, and I'll share my screen one more time. We're going back to the Miro board. So again, if it's your first time with Miro, you're getting a deep dive into the process of what we're doing here. But we have these breakouts where you're going to be in a smaller group. And we have lovely facilitators from Circular Design Lab to actually lead some of the conversation. So if you don't have the ability to type your own notes, no problem. We will do that for you. And of course, if you want to dive in right there with us, then it's open for you to do that. So Chris, over to you to put us into the breakout rooms. We'll have about 15 minutes or so. And again, if you're not catching all of what we're doing, don't worry, you can just do a quick intro in the breakout room and the facilitator will try to help explain a little bit of it for the conversation. Chris, any other things you want to mention before we move?
No, I've got about 90% of the breakout room stuff right. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up the rooms, and I'll probably move a couple of our people around really quickly to make sure that we have a couple of facilitators in each of those.
Great. So when we're in the room, we'll do a quick round of hellos, names, and then we'll get into some of the conversation. Thanks.
Okay. Rooms are open. Everybody go ahead and dive in. If anybody needs help getting into the breakout rooms, I'm here to help. Hello, we just went to breakout room, so you should be assigned to a room. Just click on join the breakout room and join the discussion. Oh, hello, can you hear me? We just went to breakout rooms a little bit ago. I can put you into one of the rooms to join the conversation. Let's see. Put you in that group.
Oh, okay, so time always goes so fast. And I saw a lot of mural artwork going on. So that was pretty exciting, maps moving and Post-its and all of that. Just wanted to double check. I think we have most people back here into our final. We're going to be wrapping up, and we're going to also share with you ways in which we would like for you to feel very welcome to continue the conversation. And just wanted to know if anybody wanted to share any final reflections or thoughts before we wrap up our meet and greets with a few things that are happening later in the week. If anybody wanted to unmute their microphone and share or put it in the chat box, completely welcome to do so. So we had, is there anything new that you were learning? Any possibilities intrigue you or ideas? I know it wasn't much time, but maybe it sparked something.
Maybe I can say something.
Please.
Yeah, this was my first time joining you guys, and I went in very clueless, and it was just awesome to see that there's so much already going on that is super exciting in the sustainable direction, and I'm definitely going to come more often.
Great, thanks, Paulina. Really appreciate that. Anybody else want to share some thoughts, reflections, or ideas before we move towards closing? So I see some messages in the chat box. And yes, it's definitely not enough time, right? So let me tell you how to continue the conversation and how, if you're interested, how to get further involved. So for starters, actually in 2 days from now, we're going to be doing only 1 hour, a part A of a systems innovation design. So we're going to share a little bit of the tools and the process that we've used in some of our workshops as digital as possible, since we're not face to face. And if you have ideas on things you would like to bring to the table, this is the spot to come. So if you haven't registered already, the link is here. It's on all of the materials, I think, so we can copy and paste that link into the chat box. But just wanted to say that's happening quite soon, and it's a great place to offer already your knowledge, but learn some other things as well, some new things. And then finally, one of the key things we wanted to mention is that we do have a Facebook page, but really where a lot of the conversation and action is in our group. And that's not necessarily the most obvious thing, because you just need to self-select into the group. But if you search for Circular Design Lab Community, we'd love to have you there if you're not already a part of it. I think we have over 400 people there. And of course, we're on Twitter and LinkedIn, other social, and Instagram too, for that matter, but we're newbies with the Instagram. So what I'd like to do is just pass it over to anybody that's already been a part of our group. Chris, Laura, Weena, Kin, Prewa, Soma, Jet, if there's any final things you'd like to share in closing. Sev, Stephanie as well, David, all of our wonderful team, please feel free to unmute your mic and share it now before we wrap up.
I'll go really quick. Sorry that it's so short. We try to keep online stuff from going too long because we don't want to wear people out. We dig in a little longer on some of the workshop sessions. And when we get back in person, we can definitely do deeper stuff. And I want to make sure we get a group picture before we go for whoever wants to take part in that. But let's have everybody else share whatever they want first.
Just a quick one. Thank you for coming. And I think with our group, we will later on create like a small group that we can talk later, and we can, between now and then, we can start to build up some ideas and cases so that when we get to the next session, we can probably work on it. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Great, thanks. Anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
Sorry, okay. I just want to say I'm fascinated by my own little breakout group, because we saw the initiatives that ranges from the individual level through a plastic recycling application for an individual to use, to a community level with the citywide sustainability dashboard, to a national level with the federal government kind of policy setting kind of initiative. So that's a fascinating way that this group or CDL community can bring together the various levels of systems change initiatives. Very cool, thanks. Laura, did you want to mention something as well?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to the Bangkok Design Week community as well. And that's new. This is a new collaboration for us, but we're really excited to be linking up with this program this week. And Also looking forward to checking out some of the other great programs that are on the lineup. So thanks very much.
Thanks. Anyone else?
Just, yeah, 2 seconds. Just want to say I'm so happy so many people have joined. Our group had a lot of very interesting people. And I think if you guys continue on, you meet a lot more very interesting folks. Highly recommend it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Awesome stuff today. Looking forward to the next one. Thank you.
Great. So if you're open to it, we're going to do a Zoom selfie. And what that means is Chris is going to take a snapshot. But, you know, there's so many Zoom calls where people are just sitting there smiling. Let's do something fun. So I'm going to invite you to use your hands to express how you feel or an idea that comes to mind, whatever is kind of your thing. And let's have some fun. OK, so Chris, are you ready for the photo parts?
Let me see.
Or I can do it if you want.
Yeah, you're probably better at this.
Okay, I'll do it. All right, so everyone, big thanks for coming. And I see a lot of beautiful faces already on the screen. But what I don't see is a lot of hands and action. So I'm gonna give you, on the count of 3, do something as spontaneous or crazy as you wish. Okay, you ready? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Okay, thanks so much, everybody. You should know where to find us online. And I hope to see you on Thursday for part A of our Systems Innovation Workshop. Everything else is on our website in terms of those 7 events. But until then, we'll see you in between or on those specific sessions. So take care and have a great rest of your day and evening.
Well,
bye, everybody.
Good evening.
Bye,
guys.
Good night.
Good night สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีค่ะ